Hello again, everyone. Today, I want to talk about Berlin as Electropolis, the electric city. Electropolis was a nickname that Berlin acquired in the 20s due to its mass adoption of electricity as a power source and its presentation of itself as a modern city through the medium of electricity. When people talk about modern cities in the 1920s, they usually jump straight to the other side of the Atlantic and talk about New York. However, in a lot of ways, Berlin was much more advanced in how it used electricity, and I believe has a strong case to be the real uh, prototype of the modern electrified city, the modern technological metropolis. In Weimar era, Berlin earned the nickname not just as a metaphor, but as a literal description of how it allowed and adopted electricity to reshape daily life. By the early 1920s, Berlin had one of the largest, most integrated municipal power networks in the world. There was electric street lighting in most districts. The entire tram network was electrified. The U-Bahn, the metro system, was electrified. Factories, offices, apartment blocks were all wired on a scale that most cities were struggling to get anywhere near. If you compare it with London or Paris, they were electrified, yes. London was still heavily dependent on gas lighting in many districts. Paris, dazzling in the centre, but really was only using electricity for spectacle rather than infrastructure. And of course, New York, technologically bold, absolutely. But it had focused on vertical ambition, on electrifying the skyscrapers, elevators, lights into the sky, illuminated signage. Berlin, on the other hand, used electrical power horizontally. It served to electrify infrastructure, not just spectacle. So by the mid 1920s, Berlin was producing over 2 billion kilowatt hours per year, which is about the same as London was producing. But London had a population around 50% larger. By the late 20s, almost 90% of Berlin's population had everyday access to electricity. Compare that to around 70% in London and 60% or less in Paris. New York had a larger percentage, 90 to 95%. However, its electrical infrastructure had been developed by the free market, and therefore access depended heavily on whether you could afford it. Whereas in Berlin, whole districts had been electrified according to systematic plans at the expense or subsidized by the state. Berlin's power wasn't just brightness, it was coordination. City planners, utilities, industry worked together. Electricity meant faster transport, more efficient production, mass media, a city that functioned better, more effectively, and later than almost anywhere else on earth. Berlin heard that New York was the city that didn't sleep and said, "Hold my coat because I'm off to the cabaret." Because electricity is what gave Berlin the opportunity to have a nightlife that exploded. The cabarets, the cinemas, the advertising, the dance halls, the 48-hour velodrome races, all dependent on electrical lighting. And electricity therefore shaped culture in Berlin. The city didn't just consume electricity, it performed with it. That's what made Berlin feel so sophisticated, not just wealth or tradition, but systems, reliable power, modern transit, mass electrification reaching ordinary people, not just flash monuments and brightly lit boulevards. Paris used electricity like jewelry. New York used it like a megaphone to shout, "Here I am." London adopted it carefully with caution, but Berlin went all in. Berlin built its whole personality around the new idea of a power socket. So when we talk about the most modern city of the 1920s, maybe the real shape of the future is best reflected not by the city across the Atlantic, but the one in the heart of Europe, the one that put people and infrastructure and transport and communication at the heart of its electrification journey. Electropolis, Berlin. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you again.